Baroness Brown, thank you very much for being with us. You've been steeped in climate change, I think it's fair to say, in recent years, chair of the Adaptation Committee on the Climate Change Committee, chair of the Carbon Trust as well. How important are ports to the UK's decarbonisation plans?
Well, they play a really key role. I think they have the potential to play this really key role in terms of the green industry clusters that we need to be developing, because they have this fantastic shipping, transport, energy kind of all comes together in ports. And of course, if you're making hydrogen offshore, perhaps from offshore wind farms, bringing that hydrogen onshore, turning it into ammonia, but also providing it as hydrogen potentially into the heavy goods sector. I really do think they can be the hubs of industrial clusters, some of the industries that, like steel making and others that might be using hydrogen, ammonia production, chemical production, really important hubs for those industries. And of course, really important in regenerating many of the UK's coastal communities who've had a pretty hard time. And when you think, that we could be looking at 100 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2050, that's an awful lot of port capacity needed for moving those very big blades and those very big structures out to build those wind farms.
The UK's economy really is very much dependent on road transport. It's the backbone of our transport infrastructure. What needs to change in the way that relates with ports?
The government's transport decarbonisation plan has identified 2040, in line with the Climate Change Committee's recommendation, as a potential date for phasing out of fossil-fuelled heavy goods vehicles. And it's announced some funding for a trial of overhead electrification on motorways. But I think what we urgently need now is actually a lot of trials of, to find out where electrification is appropriate, whether that's overhead, whether that's a combination of overhead and batteries, and where hydrogen might play a role. And of course, if ports are part of bunkering for fuels like hydrogen and ammonia, then they're going to be a really core place for supplying energy to the heavy goods vehicle industry as well.
Are you optimistic that we're doing enough to change quickly enough to make a difference?
We need to see real investment in both the R&D, but and particularly in the demonstration of that. And also we need the hydrogen strategy to look and see how the costs of these fuels are going to be supported, because of course initially they're going to be significantly higher than the fuels that they're replacing. But of course we've seen things like the CFD mechanism in the offshore wind industry work very effectively to drive costs down. And I think we need to understand from the government how it's going to enable that driving down of costs.
So how then, it's a difficult question looking forward into the future, but how would you describe the perfect port in the future?
Well, it would be bunkering zero carbon fuels like green hydrogen and ammonia. It would have these zero carbon vessels arriving in. It would have hydrogen and electric vehicles leaving to take the goods out. It would have cranes which might be electric, but actually for really heavy lifts there might be hydrogen power. And also the ports being a hub for the industries that are producing this green ammonia and this green hydrogen, and therefore expecting to see clustering around them other industries that need those green fuels. So really being green regeneration hubs around our coasts, and also stimulating, as I say, those really key coastal communities.
Baroness Brown, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.